I'm going to teach you the #1 strategy that every single real estate professional, no matter how long they've been in the business, can and should be using to explode their AI ranking. It is not complicated. Anybody can do it. It doesn't require experience and it doesn't require money. Before I get into it, I'm going to explain who I am and why I'm qualified to give you this information, or reveal it is probably a better way to put it. So my name is Robert Newman. I'm a lifetime marketer. I've been selling stuff since I was a kid. I've run large call centers. I've run countless organizations. I've had 4 consultation companies that focus on sales and marketing elements. And about 16 years ago, I got into real estate marketing by working as a contractor for a company called Agent Image. I assisted them in developing an online marketing strategy that sold to existing customers for SEO services. I then did the same for another company called Inforza, and then I branched out on my own 9 years ago and founded InboundREM. I've probably worked with about 5,000 real estate agents over the 16 years I've been doing this. And so you might say that I have a little bit of experience. So without any further ado, all of you have gotten overwhelmed with, conversations about AI. I myself have done so many videos in AI, I'm almost tired of talking about the subject. However, there's one common theme that I've noticed that I can't say this loud enough or hard enough, so hopefully my little wind-up says is really going to build up the anticipation, because I want you all to hear me. There aren't that many universal signals being used by all LLMs. That's large language models. In other words, Gemini looks at different stuff, Perplexity looks at different stuff, ChatGPT looks at different stuff. There is, however, one exception to that. The exception is all of the models are currently looking at reviews. Reviews from your peers. Now, they consider them to be citations. And a citation is somebody, and that's a fancy word for saying somebody that is out in the world that might be a user of your services, or at least somebody that theoretically has a higher degree of engagement in talking about you as a professional. That could be other professionals that are competitors to yours. It could be prospective customers. It could be really, really old friends of yours that happen to have also done some business with you. There's so many different variations of these people that could theoretically make comments to you or about you. Any of that commentary is roughly referred to as a citation or some type of shout out to your abilities. And every single LLM is looking at them. Some of them look in different places, but that's not what this video is about. This video is going to be explaining to you how to, when you get those reviews, make sure that they are all going to perform the way you want them to. They're going to be the most valuable as they can be. They're going to get you in front of the most keywords for AI. They're going to give you the highest chance to rank in AI. And they are going to propel your career forward. And what do I mean by this? Throughout 16 years of doing this, there's a lot of things that we talk to realtors about. When I got into the business 16 years ago, the hot topic for SEO at that time was blogging. Started talking to realtors about blogging. They really should blog. Google was brand new, very similar to AI. It was only a few years old at that time. It was still gaining in popularity. I think it had come out in 2012 or I don't even remember. Actually, yeah, that's not true because I started in 2008. So maybe I'm thinking of 2002. But whenever it was, Google was still ramping up. It was dominant by the time I got into this industry. However, it wasn't what it is today. It wasn't a juggernaut. Nobody was trying to, tell them that they were monopoly. That's where we're at today. At that time, the advice that I was giving out was blogging, blogging, blogging. Now I'm telling you, and because that was the grist. That was the wheat of their mill. That was what they needed over and over again because they were populating with the web with the information that honestly AI is running on now. We have so much information that everybody's pretty convinced we can create human intelligence based on what's available on the web. And I don't know that I feel like they're wrong. So having said that, the grist in the mill for AI is reviews, but not any review. A lot of reviews won't matter. They will do 0 for you. Whereas a good review could single-handedly propel you to the top of ChatGPT. 80% of the people are already there. There are markets that are getting hundreds of leads. So This is not small. This is probably the most important thing anybody will ever say to you. So very similar to the way that Michael Jordan used to practice, drill, and rehearse, which I'm not sure everybody knows this, but Michael Jordan's legendary because he'd come into the courts and he'd start to practice, and the first thing he practiced was his dribble. And this is your dribble, ladies and gentlemen. You should watch this video over and over again. Skip to this part. We're 6 minutes, 15 seconds in. You skip to this part, and now I'm going to teach you the dribble. The DRIBBLE are reviews for both engagement, usefulness in the LLMs, for every single thing that you're going to need to know. And you can see here, I didn't call it the dribble, I called it the swing. This is the swing. Is the who, what, where, why, and how of the customer situation and your situation. So I did 2 examples. Who is pretty simple. It's who is the client. I would be Robert Newman, small business owner from Van Nuys, California, looking for a home in Sherman Oaks, California. But it's really the who. Who am I? Who are you? Brett Wallace, 11-year veteran of Realtor, working for Remax, top #1 rep out of 500, ranking #1 in hyperlocal out of 5,000. These are who's. And you should have your elevator pitch of the who baked into your psyche because it's less than 5 seconds. If you don't have a 5-second answer for who you are and what you do, what the heck are you doing, ladies and gentlemen? And then the why. Now, the who, what, when, where, why can be anything, but I'm just making this as easy as possible. I'm giving you some dots you can always connect. Why? Why is the client calling you? What is the motivation behind them getting the house? And then why are you in real estate? Believe it or not, yes, you should bake that into your review responses. So who the client is and then why you got into real estate, and you got to figure out creative ways to say this over and over again, because like when I got into real estate 20 years ago, Bill, you were the dream client. I was always thinking that I wanted to serve people well, serve them in such and such a destination, which would play into where, and that I wanted to provide such and such an experience, which would play into how. So the why is really super important and can be used over and over and over and over and over and over. Again, the why and the how. And how did you, so this is the how, the mechanic of how did the deal happen, which no realtor usually puts inside the reviews, and they should. So the how, the customer sometimes will put in, and we use a template to encourage people to say some important elements that enhances the client's how, that enhances the who, what, when, where, why possibilities of you getting everything that you need from a client that's going to give you more to respond to when you put in your how. Because how, which is probably one of the most critical parts of any review, is almost never mentioned by anybody for whatever reason. The how is, how did you get financing? Did you have a difficult to finance client? Did they walk in with financing already pre-approved by some bank or something? How did you get maybe a listing in a market that is currently notoriously short on inventory? How did you find the listing? How did somebody call you? How did they find you? Was it referral? Did they respond to some of your advertising? Did they respond to some of your organic marketing? The hows of the situation that you're in are incredibly important because they will speak really cleanly to both the LLMs, the audience that you're trying to get in front of, like trying to market to, as well as the audience that they're not an audience anymore, they're your customers, and you need to make sure that you're giving them important reaffirmations about why they're using you in the first place. Please do not make the mistake of thinking that your job is done once the client is acquired and the deal is done. That is short-term thinking, and something that definitely the bottom 60% of all real estate salespeople fall into that trap. When you have done business with somebody, you're the only mindset, and I don't care who you are, that I think you should have is that I have just acquired a lifetime client. If you change that mindset and make sure you embrace it, everything I ever talk about in organic marketing is going to make so much more sense. But the how of how you're doing your deals reaffirms to people that are already doing business with you, have already bought a home from you, why they might want to keep up to date with all of your marketing and other material that you're producing or other things that you've got that are getting in front of them. And you need to make sure that you understand you're constantly selling. You're selling your customers, you're selling your prospects, you're selling your past customers, always by being of service. So sales and service are pretty much hand in hand in the information age. So if you get used to providing 5 layers of value, which you can do in this review process, you're going to have a much better chance of keeping more customers, acquiring more customers, and getting repeat business from more customers. where, the location of the house they're moving from, where, the location of the house they're moving to. This is pretty simple stuff, but it should be mentioned. It should be mentioned specifically by area name. If you say something like North Fort Bend, which is a big county, 150 miles square, that is useless. They say North Fort Bend, you go, hey, it was such a pleasure. I don't know if everybody knows this, but Aliana is this massive community in North Fort Bend, just like customer name said. And I'm just pointing it out because it's a very hard to get into community. You know, you justify the fact that you're mentioning it to both, because remember, we're trying to appeal to not only the LLMs, but we're trying to also appeal to people reading the review. So nothing can be too mechanical, and it's not like keyword stuffing. Your first benchmark is, how do I make my comments about where as useful as possible to a reader? But you know you need to mention where. Has to get done. It's one of the most important parts for a real estate agent. Location, location, location. And by the way, when you're doing your where and you're doing review response, you want to upload a photo from your cell phone, taken on the where, and if you can get both sides of it, where they're moving from and where they're moving to, double value. Why? Because these are technical tools that we're talking about, reading your profiles wherever they are. Rate My Agent, Fast Expert, G2, your Google business profile, Zillow, Realtor.com. The places that allow you to upload photos are gold, because if they allow those photos to get read, then the latitude and longitude of the place you actually did the business is provable to the LLMs. And this makes this a de facto triple value review response or review intake. And it's a massive hack in my client base where we're really seeing major results. Every realtor I talk to says, oh, I want to be ranking for all of, like, Robert, it's really not that big of a deal. It's only a 20-mile square, 3 different neighboring cities. That's all I do business in. Holy cow. Depending on where you're at, one of my clients in 20-mile squares is competing, no joke, against 5,000 other agents. So you must be cognizant that if you want to do that, then you have to give the LLMs the proof that you're good at it in every single place you'd be. And one of the best ways to do that is latitude and location tags that come in the metadata on an image, just connected into a review. The what? Property type. Single story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, perfect for a small family. I'm giving you every single hack, guys. You're going to want to replay this video 50 different times until you really, truly understand what I'm saying here. When you talk about property type, I live in a bungalow built in the 1930s in Van Nuys, California, that was originally for farmers and migrant workers. It's a single family home, 1,300 square feet, pool and jacuzzi. Property type is it's perfect for either a very small family or a single dude like myself, or single woman, single person. It's basically a very small single family home. That's the property type, small single family home. And then you can also do another nod to where. Just because you hit these points doesn't mean there's not value in hitting them over and over. And what do I mean by that? Where, the example I gave you, is the specific street address, or the specific city, or the broad mentions. But if you're trying to figure out a way to encapsulate a lot in a very short period of time, you could easily say Van Nuys as the where. So it's a single family home in Van Nuys, and now you've hit both the what and the where in a single sentence. Your review responses will not be as long as my instructions on how to do them, or at least in most cases. And what? Another variation of what is, that I already gave you, is pool, jacuzzi, proximity to lifestyle elements. Like, I am very close to a park that has a lake and ducks and fishing and archery and all sorts of really cool things. It's all within, it's a long walk, but it's within walking distance, because I've walked it many times from my house. That is really important. What is close to the property? You've got fishing, you've got archery, you've got bike riding, you've got skating, you've got golf. All of that's walking distance from my house, making it, if any of those things were important to the person reading the review, looking at the review, all of a sudden that what could be really, really important. It's certainly very, very important in terms of a ranking factor, guys, because everything that I'm mentioning to you, the detail that's going in here, is because review tools like the LLMs are picking up keywords semantically. The better that you get at this, the more you're going to discover not only do you rank, but you rank for a lot more, a massive volume of keywords. Mention your client's divorce, probably dirty pool, unless you know they're comfortable with you talking about it. However, if you can somehow get it in there about the why, sorry that you were getting divorced, it was such a terrible situation, and then something in there about both location and how you solve some of the problems that went along with being divorced, guess what? Now you will probably get an AI hit for being a divorce specialty lawyer or somebody that is great to call in the advent that people are going through divorces. Why is that important? I know all of you know this, but in case you have forgotten, 3 to 5 people out of every 10 go through a divorce. At some point, many people go through more than one. So is this a small factor? A small little teeny tiny market? Maybe if you're in the South or somewhere very rural, maybe you don't know that many people that get divorced. If you're anywhere metro, it's it's the farthest thing from small. All right, this has been what you need to know for getting reviews. There's a lot more to say on the subject. They are so important and they will remain so for ranking in AI, for getting better conversion off all of your websites, your profile, your realtor.com profile, your Zillow profile. If you're looking to get bigger, better responses and rank at the same time, so more conversion, more money, then review mechanics, the dribble, the swing. This is the batter box you need to be in every single day. You need to practice, drill, and rehearse this. I don't care if you're making $1 million. Understanding how to get the best possible review will give you the best chance to get better inbound leads off your existing marketing assets. If you have 500 reviews somewhere, I don't care. You still need to watch this video over and over and over again, because if you've got 500 reviews and you're not getting 100, 200 calls a month, you're doing something wrong. And this is going to help you correct at least some of it. And if for some reason this is raising more questions, or you have a very specific case study or anything like that, there will be a link to my calendar down below. I'd be happy to talk to you about this more in depth, about how you can get us to do a certain amount of this work, how you can hire us, and how we'll remind you and we'll be the coach that gets you into the batter box and reminds you over and over again that you do need to do this. And of course, we'll rank you for AI, because there are, as with every single thing that somebody does to say, oh, we're going to rank you, the devil is in the details. And one of the details that we're really good at, that we've proven over and over and over and over again, make our clients a ton of money and get tons of ranking, it's this. It's this right here. All right, I've been Robert Newman. If you got some value out of this, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs down. And if you have a question, leave me a comment in the reviews. It helps with the algo, and it helps with making me happy. All right, thanks so much. Until next time.